So here's the thing. Destiny is all, and way too many characters in The Last Kingdom die. It's very stylistically apathetic. Before we get started, I want to say a quick hello and welcome all. This is Eclectic Kelpi, where we dive into the treasure trove of fantastical media. And if you are obsessed with tragical historical fiction, then form the shield wall and charge into that subscribe button to come along on our adventures. Now, without further ado, let's dive into the episode. So today we are going to be ranking every single Last Kingdom death from super, super happy, finally they're dead, Viking cheer, like, yes, this is good that they're dead, I literally don't care, prayers and sorrows, did cry, but it wasn't, like, heart-wrenchingly the worst experience, like, made a lasting impact. Next, it did leave a lasting impact, it had impact on the series, but also, like, personally, like, was really upset about it. And then finally, the saddest death, which we'll leave for last, and it's gonna be hard to decide. It might not be just one character. But without further ado, let's dive in. Also, very quick, spoiler warning, this is all of the deaths in the Last Kingdom series, so if you haven't watched it yet, proceed at your own discretion. There's going to be a lot of major spoilers in this episode. So with that, we're going to start off with Vivica, that is Britta's daughter. She shows up in season 5, and I think it's just prayers and sorrows. Like, there's going to be I'm going to have to make these really small, but this is her. Yeah, I think it's just prayers and sorrows. Like, it's hard. It's a hard one. Yeah, it's sad. She's just a child, but so the minimum amount of episodes that a character had to be in to be on this list, because there is so many, had to be 3 episodes at least. And she, I think, was only in like 4 maximum. Or no, I think she must have been in 3. So, yeah. I mean, it's sad objectively because she's a kid, but it wasn't that deep. The next one is, I do have a cheat sheet because there's too many characters and their names are all really crazy. Okay. Next is Wooland. I think he's also a prayers and sorrows. I think, yeah, he was loyal. He was just some dude. It's kind of like in the Buffy one where it was like Drax was just some guy doing his job. I think that Wooland is the same kind of energy. It's just some guy doing his job. Like, yeah, he was like a loyal companion to Sigtrigger and Steora, but yeah, he's a dude. He did his job. Good job. Next is Jackdaw. He's Heston's guy, and I didn't care. Genuinely, whatever. Sigtrigger, I think, because his death does have lasting impact, and it did make me cry. Like, I think how they venerate, so again, like how I had mentioned before, there's a lot of stylistic apathy with killing off characters in the show. Like, they really, like, it just happens and then they move along so fast because a lot of it is happening in battle. So I think that because that's the case and they rush through it, how the characters handle that death afterwards makes the most impact and makes the tears come, or like the feelings happen. Because I feel like when somebody just casually dies in battle, there's a couple of that happen that are like more meaningful deaths, but it just kind of runs through, and then how they're like venerated afterwards makes the difference and makes it feel more impactful. But I do think that Sigtrigger's death does have lasting impact in the series itself, because it initiates conflict, but it also ends conflict. So yeah, I think that's where he sits. And yeah, how they do the like proper like long ship funeral and all that, like, yeah, I liked how they handled his death afterwards. Next one is Eared Wolf. Finally, he was awful. He's just awful. He's just a really man. Did not like him. Same thing with this guy, actually. Did not like him. Ethelhelm, I think actually if we're putting these in order of like the worst one, I think Ethelhelm was worse. Because he just couldn't leave anything alone, and he was very like power grabby white man, like just really unfortunate. And I think that this show did a lot of good things in terms of making characters, there was a lot of like gray rather than just this is a bad person, this is a good person, and there was like empathy and a lot of understanding of character motivations and why people were doing what they were doing, or finding empathy and compassion for antagonists. But I feel like in few instances, particularly with Ethelhelm, I did not find redeemable qualities for him. I think that he was just awful and made a lot of bad choices for bad reasons. So, good job. Finally. He needed to die earlier. But then, of course, there wouldn't have been the season 5 lasting antagonist. But anyways, hated him. Osforth, I think his death didn't leave a lasting impact in terms of like how it continued through the show, but I mean he did leave an impact in terms of like his like character friendships and stuff, like the 4 main guys. This was one of the ones where they just killed him in battle and then moved along. And I do think that the other characters like Uhtred and Finan and Cittric, they took the time to mourn, but they were also doing other things at the same time, so it wasn't like really highlighted that much. Like it wasn't made with reverence. Like, yeah. So I think that he was sad, but not that sad. Heston, I think at the end of it, Prayers and Sorrows, like there was he was awful though. Like actually awful at the beginning. He kind of made some, and this is kind of like another one of the gray characters, like he did kind of make his own little redemption at the end, and he did finally become like a little bit loyal at the end, but I didn't really care. He can go ahead and hang out with his buddy actually. Heston can hang out with Jackdaw. Next, Ethelfled, I think she's gotta hang out up here also, because that was the tragic, there was a lot of like decent romance storylines in this series, and I think this one with her and Uhtred could have been a really cute story, but it also I think was perfectly done in terms of the tragic reality of their lives and being at war and having all the conflicts and stuff going on. So yeah, she was really sad. I think also like her, again, like the stylistic apathy to death and like having it be kind of like a less graphic Game of Thrones where all the characters could die because that is the reality of war, and so like putting in that reality aspect of it I think is important. And also like it's historical fiction, so she did die of, I think in the show they were like alluding that it was breast cancer, but in history it was just an illness, unspecified, never documented. So it's kind of like interesting because this is history and it's real. These characters are real people in the world that have been dramatized in a show. So it's kind of one of those things where like, yes, we can be sad about it, but also it was always going to happen because it was a real person and their real experience just put into a series. So it's sad, but yeah, they didn't really spend a lot of like time mourning her. She was kind of a martyr after she died, which is why she's lasting impact, but I didn't really feel too deeply personally. Like she's sad, but she's not the saddest. Steapa, Prison Sorrows, he's just some dude trying to do his job. Very Woland, you know. Elfled, I didn't care. She was annoying. And yeah, her father's daughter, for sure. Was really, don't really care. Whatever. Story. I think this was fun how they used this character, but I also didn't care. Like, it was, I kind of appreciated that they had real magic in this world, or the perceived reality of magic in this world. So like after Brita killed him, she was able to like get pregnant and her curse was lifted because he had cursed her to like be infertile. So that's, you know, real magic, real curses. But yeah, I didn't really care that he died. It was unceremonious and a plot point, but not like really meaningful in terms of the grander plot. Bloodhair, I also didn't care. An antagonist in the series, not a big deal. Yeah, I don't really have much to say about him. He died. Ada the Older, I think. So I want to put him... So, okay, so I didn't actually have like a big emotional response to him. I think his death was really sad. I think that he made good choices in terms of like, he wanted to help Wessex. He wanted to like try to make a stand, and Alfred was like, nah, and then he was like, okay, you're a traitor now. So like, I think the circumstances around him dying were pretty sad, and I actually think it was like, I appreciated how he decided to like take it upon himself in terms of he owned his own life and his own death. And I think for this story, that was well done. But I didn't really like feel super emotional in terms of like crying about it. So that's, I can't put him higher than this. Yeah, I think he was good. Gisela, so sad. I feel, okay, so her death was a little bit cheap, I think. I'm putting her there because I think that she had a lot of impact, but it's hard. Like, they just kind of breeze through things, but she is mentioned quite frequently after, obviously because she was like the main like long-term love interest and she was really impactful, and so I'm gonna leave her there. I don't think I really felt too much because it also happened off screen. Like, they really did her dirty in terms of like giving her any sort of like nice send-off. But again, I think that was the point, is to make it more realistic and grounded in like, this is something that could happen. This is what the world looks like and nobody's really safe. Ragnar, he's gotta go also in this section. His death was horrible. Getting killed in his bed, it was a bad day. I think the storyline of his death and how it was handled was really well done. R.I.P. He's in Valhalla. That was also a nice plot point of like bringing Brida and Uhtred back together to send him off. And I liked that there was always that connection to both lives, being a Dane and being also a Saxon for Uhtred. And so having that death of Ragnar and having the grand goodbye, I think they did a good job of venerating him, which was nice. Kjartan, yeah, he was awful. I think he's just a Viking cheer though. Good job. He's dead. Wonderful revenge storyline. Same thing with Sven, but I think that Sven honestly is a finally, because it all started, the whole entire season 1 problem was this one child, and that is really unfortunate that it was just this one child who made very poor choices and inexcusable poor actions and made it so that Uhtred's whole life had changed, and then also was awful to Tura and not condonable. So, good. Eaten by dogs. Exactly how he should have gone. Klappa, I hope it's so, okay, I'm sorry if I'm not saying all these names right. I think he's just prayers and sorrows. He's also just kind of one of the guys, one of the buds, doing his job. All of these, sans like Vivica, but like all of these were just kind of trying to do their job and be loyal to their people, and they just got caught up. Skade can chill with blood hair. As in life, so in death. I didn't really care. This, like, I loved season 3. I think it was the strongest season out of all of them. Like, it was a very well done season. This, though, didn't care. Whatever. And then Ubba, I think also, actually, he can go in prayers and sorrows, because the only reason that he reacted so poorly was because he thought that Uhtred had killed his bestie. What are you gonna do? He's loyal. He was, like, not a bad character. He just was misinformed. Leofric... Okay, so I'm gonna be so for real. I just rewatched The Last Kingdom. I don't remember him dying on screen. So getting into season 2, maybe I just, like, completely missed it and was, like, not paying attention, but I literally don't remember him dying on screen. I feel like I want to put him in, like, tears, but I literally don't remember him dying. I just remember him in season, like, not in season 2. He was just absent from the beginning of season 2. I really liked his character. I loved the banter. I loved the dynamics. He was great. I just don't remember him dying, so I have no emotional attachment to him dying, which means that he can't be higher than Prayers and Sorrows, because I literally don't remember him dying on screen. So, but he did, because he apparently was stabbed with an axe in the neck by a random Dane. Oh! Yeah, he did. Okay, but he doesn't, like, die on screen. Okay, no, I remember this now. He didn't die on screen, though. He just was stabbed and then he, like, walked away a little bit, but they don't, like, show him, like, fall and die. So, again, if they had made a bigger deal about it, I would have made a bigger deal about it and felt more about it. I think that's it. Okay. Uhtred's uncle, I think, is also just a Viking cheer. Like, yeah, stupid, made bad choices. Started off he did start off the series-long conflict. He was the problem, you know? So, yeah, good. He didn't do anything, like, I put these guys here because they were the worst and their actions were deplorable. I think he was very bad, but not this level bad. So, good job. Yeah, yay for death for him. Otta the Younger, I think also just here, like, very unceremonious. His dad killed him because he was a traitor. They don't really, like, linger on that for very long. Like, yes, like, Otta the Older does experience mourning for his son and becomes, like, a drunk and all that stuff. So, like, he personally is in his own section of the world dealing with those feelings, but the series and the, like, main focus is not on that experience, but also he is just kind of, like, an ass, and I don't really care. Isolde, I think, is also just Prayers and Sorrows. I think that her death was sad. It wasn't, like, a huge deal. Well, it was. It was a huge deal, but I didn't feel, and this is my list, so I didn't feel a lot for her. I think it was, like, sad, but I didn't find, like, personally affected. Same thing with Siegfried. I didn't really care. Season 2 antagonist, like, not the hugest deal. Ethelred, though, was awful. But here's the thing. When they tried to make him compassionate, like, they tried to give a compassionate ending to him and tried to give him some sort of redemption, I do almost want to put him, like, one up from that, but his actions during his whole time were deplorable. He was awful. He actively tried to cause harm, and for, like, really, really horrible reasons. So I think he has to be a finally, even though at the end of his life there was some, like, sympathy to be had. But I don't think that changes the majority of his time in the world of The Last Kingdom. So Eric, I think, is also gonna be Prayers and Sorrows because it's sad, but I feel like for him it was the longevity that wasn't there. I think he didn't have enough time to have there be enough investment to have his death be as sad as it could have been, or have reverence be placed on his death. Obviously, there was impact, but I think it was also just done really quickly and then passed on so fast that it was like kind of whatever. That's kind of the same thing with Canute. I didn't really care. Yeah, he's not the worst of the antagonists, but I didn't really care. You know? I'm glad that Brita got her closure. And speaking of Brita, I think because of how quickly they moved past her death, that lowered her on the impact. But I think it's really sad. Like, I want to put her... No, I think that she belongs in just the tiers, like the single tier category. But I think that, like, her impact on Uhtred is very significant. She was the last connection to his childhood, living as a Dane, being, like, part of the becoming of who he is now, was so heavily attached with her. And so I think that her death was very impactful in terms of his experience. But for me, I think it was sad, but I think that they moved past it so quickly and didn't really give her time. Like, I think the reason why I'm putting her here and then Ragna up here is because he got well, this might be indicative of some prioritization on the part of the Last Kingdom, but he got a whole, like, after death send-off where literally Brita and Uhtred went on this fetch quest to figure out how to send him to Valhalla, and they gave him so much attention after his death, and they gave him so much, like, care, whereas Brita, she died, and yes, Uhtred was, like, sad, and he was mourning, and he felt this connection to her that their destinies were entwined, but then after her death, it just moved on so quickly, and there was other things happening, that I feel like because they didn't give her death time to hit and mean more to the audience who's in, like, also experiencing that moment, that lessened the impact. So, yeah, I think that's what that is. Whitgar, I think he's got to chill with his dad. Good job. Yeah. The ending of the Bebember saga, Uhtred gets his home back. Wonderful. We love to see it. Ethelwald, I think he's got to be finally. Yes. I think he's got to be finally, because he is awful. Yeah. Just the worst. Not the worst of the worst, but, like, pretty bad. So, yeah. And he was just annoying. For, like, lack of better descriptions, I think he was just annoying. Like, he just was there for too long. I think he really outstayed his welcome, and I think that the characters in the show felt that, and I think that that was projected very well for the audiences also to feel that. So, yeah. But that leaves it to the saddest death. And with this one, I can't decide between three. So they're all going to be the saddest death, but I think they're going to be the saddest death in their own tier. So I think Tura, yeah, I think she's got to be in the middle. Okay, so Tura, I think, is one of the saddest deaths, one of the top 3 saddest deaths, because of how she dies. Like, she had been tormented from childhood to adulthood. She had finally gotten settled. She was happy. She was married. She was in such a good spot. And then just prejudice and bigotry and hatred made it so that she couldn't be happy anymore. And some asshole set her house on fire, and she had to die. And that's really messed up. I think that I don't really like that her death and Alfred's death were done so close together, because I feel like it took away from the other a little bit. But I think that her death was super impactful and very sad and just so emotional, because she literally just wanted to live happily and just kind of like exist and not have to deal with all this nonsense. And she was fine. And then just some man had to come in and impede her. And it's just so tragic. And so that's why I think that. And I think the third, it has to be Father Bayaka. Like, I think the reason I would have put him first, I think, if it hadn't again been so fast and pushed by so quickly. I think that him being Uhtred's father figure was so impactful. Like, him being a part of the story for the whole story and having that really strong connection and being that like true family component was just like so important. But yeah, I feel like his death was really rushed. I do appreciate they gave a lot of like positive mourning time for Uhtred after his death, but I think that like they could have done better with giving him more importance. But I think that him dying was very, very sad. And finally, I think the toppest tier of the saddest death was Alfred. And I say that because I cried so much. And I thought that like it was just done so well, and the whole episode of him dying in season 3, like the whole entire episode of like Uhtred coming and talking to him, them having this like big conversation about like, oh, I'm gonna, you know, watch your kid until he gets to the throne, I'm going to take care of everything, like don't you worry, like I've got this, I'll make sure to like make sure that your legacy lives on and your dream of England will be realized. And there was just so much time and emphasis and compassion, and there was so much importance placed on his death, and how the actor who plays Uhtred was reacting to it. You get so invested, and just the scenes between them were so well done. And so like I was crying so much, and the characters were experiencing the emotions, and it was just so well done. And yeah, that's why, like, surprisingly enough, but they just did it so well, I think that Alfred's death is the toppest of the saddest deaths. Even though there's, I think, 3 saddest deaths, I think he's like the toppest of the saddest. Yeah, it was really well done. And that was my ultimate tier list for The Last Kingdom, the saddest deaths. Let me know in the comments your opinions on this list. This was just my thoughts, but I would love to hear who you think was the saddest death and who was the most vindicating death in the series. But thank you all so much for watching. Everything with love. We'll see you next time in the treasure trove. Bye!